The chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed with an alien elegance, its walls lined with holographic banners representing the 22 species that formed the assembly. Suspended high above a nebula-streaked void, the council station was a symbol of unity, a tenuous unity, as Jonathan Kane was about to discover. Standing at the center of the amphitheater-like room, Kane's tailored suit and composed demeanor set him apart from the gathering of alien delegates. He was humanity's chosen representative, sent to argue for Earth's full membership in the Council. For decades, humanity had been relegated to a probationary role, allowed access to trade and limited technology, but excluded from critical decisions. Today, Kane intended to change that. The murmurs of the delegates rippled through the chamber, some voices curious, others derisive. Kane could feel their eyes, some faceted, some glowing, others inscrutable, boring into him. He glanced briefly at the lone human delegation seated behind him, their expressions betraying varying degrees of anxiety and resolve. He knew they were counting on him to carry the weight of Earth's hopes. Ambassador Kane intoned the holographic projection of the Council's central AI, its voice a blend of all the member species. "You have the floor." Kane stepped forward, his posture upright and confident. The central dais illuminated beneath him, casting a pale blue glow that accentuated the lines of exhaustion etched into his face. His voice was calm, measured, yet carried an undeniable strength as it echoed across the chamber. Honored delegates of the Galactic Council, he began, his gaze sweeping the room. For centuries, humanity has looked to the stars with wonder. When we discovered that we were not alone, it was not fear that gripped us, but hope. Hope that we might join a community greater than ourselves. Some delegates nodded, while others remained stone-faced. Kane continued, weaving humanity's story into his plea. He spoke of resilience, innovation, and a desire for peaceful coexistence. He acknowledged Earth's turbulent history, but framed it as proof of their capacity for growth. "We stand before you today, not as conquerors or usurpers," Kane said, his voice rising slightly, "but as partners. Humanity's contributions to galactic trade, science, and defense speak for themselves. We have earned our place at this table, not through conquest, but through cooperation." For a moment, there was silence. Then, the delegate from the Draltian Dominion rose, a towering insectoid with mandibles clicking in agitation. "Earned," the Draltian representative hissed. "Your species expands too quickly, breeds conflict wherever it goes. You are dangerous." Kane held his ground, meeting the delegate's compound eyes with unflinching determination. The same accusations could be leveled at many here when they first joined the Council. Humanity seeks peace, not domination. A low rumble of agreement spread through some of the factions, but it was quickly drowned out by the booming voice of another delegate, this one from the Vosker Coalition. A reptilian creature with iridescent scales, the Vosker representative slammed a clawed hand on their podium. "Your words are clever, human," they growled. "But we remember the Battle of Den Arisv. Your kind slaughtered thousands of our people in the name of self-defense." "That was a mistake," Kane replied firmly, his tone tinged with regret. "One that we have worked tirelessly to rectify. Humanity has no interest in repeating the mistakes of the past." As the room devolved into heated arguments, Kane could feel the tide slipping away. His arguments, no matter how rational, were being drowned by fear and prejudice. Yet, he had anticipated this. Taking a calculated risk, he raised his hand, signaling for silence. "There will always be those who fear progress," Kane said, his voice cutting through the noise. "But to let fear dictate our actions is to stagnate. Humanity offers you a choice. Accept us as equals, or allow fear to blind you to the potential of what we can achieve together." The room fell quiet, tension thick in the air. Kane's heart pounded, but he didn't let it show. He had delivered his best. The rest was out of his hands. The silence was broken by an unassuming figure seated near the center of the chamber. The council speaker, an elder of the Erythian species, with translucent skin that pulsed with faint bioluminescence, rose slowly. The speaker's gaze lingered on Cain before turning to the assembly. "The humans' words are bold," the speaker said, their voice a calm counterpoint to the chaos. "Perhaps too bold." Before Cain could react, another voice interjected, a cold, sharp tone that froze the air. "We have heard enough." The delegate who spoke belonged to the Tariq Syndicate, a race of crystalline beings known for their rigid, authoritarian ideology. Their leader, High Chancellor Vec, stood and gestured imperiously. "Humanity is a disease," Vec declared, their crystalline body refracting the chamber's light. "And like any disease, it must be eradicated before it spreads." Gasps echoed through the room. Cain's pulse quickened as he took a step forward. "This is a diplomatic assembly. You can't seriously." "Silence!" Vec roared, their voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. Without warning, Vec raised a hand, and a surge of light erupted from a device embedded in their crystalline form. Cain's body seized as an alien energy engulfed him, flames licking at his suit. He stumbled, falling to his knees as the searing pain consumed him. The human delegation shouted in protest, but they were quickly subdued by armed guards. The assembly watched in stunned silence, some frozen in shock, others silently approving. Cain's final scream echoed through the chamber before the flames subsided, leaving only ash and silence in their wake. In the distant reaches of Earth's solar system, the live broadcast of the event played across every screen. Billions watched in horror as their ambassador was executed without trial, without cause. The president of the United Earth government stood before a massive crowd in Unity Square, her face pale but resolute. The words she spoke would be etched into history. This was not just an attack on Ambassador Cain. This was an attack on every man, woman, and child of Earth. Today, the Galactic Council declared war on humanity. Tomorrow, we will respond. The crowd erupted, a wave of fury and determination spreading across the planet. Factories began churning out weapons, fleets prepared for battle, and humanity's resolve solidified into a single, unifying purpose. In the ashes of Cain's death, a fire ignited, a fire that would consume the stars. The response was swift and uncompromising. Across Earth's surface, factories roared to life. Military installations went into overdrive, and recruitment centers overflowed with volunteers. Humanity's anger, born of grief and outrage, was harnessed into a singular, terrifying purpose: war. Admiral Rachel Lynn stood on the command deck of the UNS Resolute, humanity's most advanced dreadnought, as reports flooded in from every corner of the system. Earth's disparate nations had cast aside old rivalries, uniting their resources and expertise. Defense contractors worked around the clock to retrofit aging ships, while prototype weapons, once deemed too experimental, were rushed into production. Humanity had never mobilized on such a scale, and Lynn knew it would still barely be enough. "We'll need to hit them hard and fast," Lynn said, her voice calm but steely. "They think we're weak. We need to prove them wrong before they can organize." Across the command table, Colonel Marcus Reeve nodded, a towering figure with a grizzled beard and eyes hardened by decades of combat. He had been tasked with coordinating the ground forces. "Agreed." Shock and awe. "The Council's fractured right now. If we strike the right targets, we can shatter their confidence." Lynn's second-in-command, Commander Elliot Hayes, hesitated. But what about the civilian casualties? Some of these council factions weren't even in favor of Cain's execution. Lynn's gaze was unyielding. "The time for diplomacy is over." They watched as one of their own burned Cain alive. "Every one of them is complicit. The council doesn't fear us, yet. They will." On the fringes of council space, humanity's fleet assembled in secret. Hundreds of warships, ranging from nimble frigates to colossal carriers, formed a vanguard. The Resolute led the charge, its sleek frame bristling with railguns, plasma cannons, and experimental energy shields. Aboard the vessels, soldiers prepared for battle, their faces a mix of grim determination and anger. The first target was carefully chosen, Borgian Station, a key supply hub for the Galactic Council. Intelligence reports suggested it was lightly defended, its garrison complacent after centuries of peace. For humanity, it was the perfect opportunity to deliver a message. As the fleet emerged from hyperspace, the station's defenders scrambled to respond. Alien ships, their designs varied and mismatched, moved to intercept. But they were unprepared for humanity's tactics. Fire at will, Lynn ordered, her voice steady over the comms. The Resolute S railguns fired first, their projectiles streaking through the void with devastating precision. Smaller human vessels darted around the enemy lines, their advanced maneuvering systems allowing them to outflank the disorganized defenders. Drones swarmed from carriers, overwhelming the alien ships with sheer numbers. Within minutes, the battle turned into a rout. Explosions lit up the darkness as alien vessels were torn apart, their crews unable to match humanity's unrelenting assault. On the station itself, Colonel Reeve led the ground forces in a brutal but efficient campaign to seize control. The humans were ruthless. They disabled the station's power grid, cut off its life support, and swept through its corridors with practiced efficiency. Resistance was sporadic and quickly crushed. By the time the Council's reinforcements arrived, it was too late. The station was in ruins, its defenders either dead or captured. Lynn transmitted a single message to the Council before the fleet retreated. Humanity does not forgive. The shockwaves of the attack rippled through the galaxy. On the Council's homeworld, chaos erupted as delegates debated how to respond. Some, like the Dralshian and Tariq, called for immediate retaliation, advocating for the total annihilation of humanity. Others, more cautious, urged restraint, warning that further escalation could backfire. But the Council's hubris blinded them. They saw humanity as an upstart species, dangerous, but ultimately outmatched. The attack on Borgian Station was dismissed as a fluke, an act of desperation from a species with no chance of winning a prolonged war. Vec, the High Chancellor of the Tariq Syndicate, took the floor during the emergency session. His crystalline form glinted under the chamber's lights as he addressed the assembly. "Let the humans rage," Vec said, his voice resonating with cold certainty. "They cannot stand against the combined might of the Council. We will crush them, and their insolence will serve as a warning to all who would challenge our authority." While the Council argued, humanity prepared its next move. Intelligence agents embedded within the Council's ranks had uncovered a critical vulnerability: the Central Communications Relay on Aerith Prime, a heavily fortified planet responsible for coordinating Council fleets. If humanity could disable the relay, it would throw the Council's forces into disarray, buying Earth precious time to solidify its defenses. The mission was ambitious, almost suicidal, but Lynn and Reeve agreed it was worth the risk. A strike team of elite operatives, backed by orbital bombardments, would infiltrate the planet and sabotage the relay. Every detail was planned with meticulous precision, knowing failure was not an option. As the fleet prepared for its assault on Aerith Prime, Lynn addressed her crew. Standing tall on the Resolute's bridge, she spoke with a voice that carried the weight of humanity's resolve. "They thought we'd crumble after Cain. They thought they could snuff us out with one act of cruelty. But they underestimated us. They don't understand what it means to be human, our resilience, our determination. We are not just fighting for survival. We are fighting for justice, for Jonathan Cain, for every man, woman, and child on Earth. And we will not stop until the stars burn with our vengeance." A deafening cheer erupted across the comms as soldiers and crew rallied behind her words. Humanity was no longer pleading for a seat at the table. They were building their own, one battle at a time. The fleet launched toward Aerith Prime, their engines blazing like the fury of 1,000 suns. Lin knew the mission would be dangerous, that not all of them would return. But as she looked out at the expanse of stars, she felt no doubt. Humanity's war had only just begun. The Galactic Council's once unified front now lay in disarray. The unexpected ferocity of humanity's retaliation had sown seeds of doubt and fear among the member species. Emergency sessions were convened in the Grand Hall of the Council's capital, a planet known for its towering spires and shimmering skies. Delegates filled the chamber, their voices a cacophony of panic and accusation. "This is an outrage," bellowed the Draushan representative, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "We underestimated the humans, and now they threaten our very existence." The Erythian delegate, her translucent skin pulsing with anxiety, responded, "We must seek a diplomatic resolution. Further conflict will only lead to mutual destruction." Amidst the turmoil, High Chancellor Vec of the Tariq Syndicate remained silent, his crystalline form reflecting the chamber's light. Internally, he grappled with the realization that his decisive action against Ambassador Kane had ignited a war that now spiraled beyond control. Meanwhile, humanity's campaign pressed on with relentless precision. Admiral Rachel Lynn stood on the bridge of the UNS Resolute, her gaze fixed on the holographic display of their next target, the industrial world of Zarnath Prime, a critical supplier of war materials to the Council. "We strike at their heart," Lynn declared to her assembled officers. "Deprive them of their resources, and we cripple their ability to fight." Colonel Marcus Reeve, leading the ground assault, coordinated with resistance cells on Zarnath Prime. The plan was audacious: simultaneous attacks on key factories and supply lines, supported by orbital bombardments. The operation commenced under the cover of the planet's perpetual storms. Human forces deployed with surgical precision, their advanced weaponry and tactics overwhelming the unprepared defenders. Explosions lit up the darkened skies as facilities vital to the Council's war effort were reduced to rubble. Yet, amidst the victories, the grim realities of war became apparent. Reports filtered in of civilian casualties, collateral damage, and the psychological toll on soldiers witnessing the devastation firsthand. Admiral Lynn, in her private moments, grappled with the moral complexities of their campaign. As the conflict escalated, factions within the Council began to fracture. Some species, fearing total annihilation, initiated clandestine communications with human representatives, seeking separate peace agreements. Others doubled down, rallying their forces for a protracted war. The tipping point arrived with the Battle of Epsilon Eridani. The Council amassed a formidable fleet, intending to deliver a decisive blow to humanity's forces. Admiral Lynn, anticipating the move, orchestrated an ambush within the system's dense asteroid belt. The ensuing battle was cataclysmic. Ships on both sides exchanged devastating fire, the void illuminated by the wreckage of destroyed vessels. Humanity's strategic positioning and superior tactics gradually turned the tide. The Council fleet, unable to maneuver effectively within the asteroids, suffered catastrophic losses. In the aftermath, with their military capabilities severely diminished, the Council convened once more. The once grand chamber now felt oppressive, the weight of impending defeat palpable. High Chancellor Vec, his voice devoid of its previous arrogance, addressed the assembly. "We sought to assert our dominance, and in doing so, we have brought ruin upon ourselves. It is time to seek terms with the humans." A delegation was dispatched to Earth, where they were met not with vengeance, but with a stern resolve. The human leaders, bearing the scars of war, laid out their conditions: dissolution of the current council, establishment of a new interstellar body based on mutual respect, and reparations for the unprovoked attack on Ambassador Kane. The council representatives, recognizing their untenable position, acquiesced. The Treaty of Seoul was signed, marking the end of hostilities and the beginning of a new era. In the years that followed, the galaxy slowly healed. The new Galactic Assembly, with humanity as a leading member, worked to foster cooperation and prevent the mistakes of the past. Yet, the memory of the war remained a stark reminder of the consequences of hubris and the indomitable spirit of humanity when provoked.